The world of eternal shadows, 10 million years ago, the world was a place of deep mysteries and infinite nights. Imagine an Earth still shaped by ancient forces, where continents stretched like the hides of giant animals, and the air carried the aroma of damp leaves, nocturnal flowers that bloomed under the moon, and the soft roar of rivers cutting through dense forests. There were no artificial lights or noisy cities. Instead, vast jungles covered the planet like a living blanket of darkness and green, with trees so tall that their canopies blocked the sun during the day, creating perpetual twilight, and at night, a veil of stars that seemed to touch the ground. Wide, lazy rivers snaked through the landscape, their dark waters reflecting distant constellations and sheltering bioluminescent fish that blinked like water fireflies. Mountains shrouded in mist rose like silent guardians, their slopes full of caves where echoes of prehistoric creatures whispered secrets. In this prehistoric era, giant mammals were beginning to dominate, after the reign of the dinosaurs. There were colossal ground sloths with curved claws like sickles and thick fur that camouflaged them among the roots, moving slowly but with irresistible strength. Nocturnal predators like large felines with long fangs hunted in the shadows, their eyes gleaming like malevolent moons. But beyond these beasts of fur and claw, there existed something more enigmatic and ancestral: the spirits of the night. They were not seen in the light of day, but emerged with the fall of the sun, weaving webs of protective darkness, dancing in cold breezes and maintaining the balance between the earth's sleep and the awakening of the stars. It was in this world of intertwined shadows that the legend of Mapingu, the Eye of the Night, was born. He was not a common creature, like those that crawled over damp earth in search of roots or prey. Mapingu was a nocturnal entity, forged in the depths of stellar caves and in the fury of torrential rains that washed the forests. His body was immense, covered in thick, disheveled fur that changed color with the moon, from the absolute black of midnight to the silvery gray of dawn. But what truly made Mapingu unique was his eye. Not two, like mortals, but one single gigantic eye, solitary in the center of his broad forehead, like a full moon embedded in living flesh. This eye saw everything in the darkness: veins of underground rivers, hidden paths among the roots, and even the whispers of wandering spirits. It emitted a bluish-green glow, hypnotic and penetrating, capable of paralyzing imprudent hunters or guiding the lost to safety. Mapingu did not feed on flesh or fruits. He nourished himself on the essence of the night, the dew that formed on leaves under the stars, the deep silence of sleeping forests, and the subtle pulse of the earth during repose. His mission was sacred: to protect the primordial jungles, those that sheltered the first sprouts of life after the great floods and droughts. 10 million years ago, the earth pulsed with violent changes. Rivers overflowed like ruptured veins, flooding entire valleys, while droughts burned the soil like furnaces. Lightning storms lit the sky, and the full moon revealed horrors in the shadows. But it was in these hours of darkness that Mapingu appeared, like a silent watchman. He guided seeds to moist soils, scared away wild beasts with his deep roar, a sound like trumpets echoing from caves, and wove protective dreams for creatures trembling in the dark. Chapter 1. The Awakening of the Eternal Fissure. In the heart of the eternal shadows, jungles where the forest was densest and oldest, lived a special people called the Night Weavers. They were not humans as we know them today, but ancestral beings, slender and agile, with skin speckled with patterns that mimicked the stars, allowing them to blend into the darkness. Their eyes were adapted to the dim light, glowing faintly like fireflies, and they moved silently, using retractable claws to climb trees and nets, woven from lunar fibers to capture dew. They spoke in soft murmurs, like the night wind among the leaves, and believed that the jungle was a great collective dream, where each shadow was a thread, each star a knot, and each moon a master weaver. The leader of this clan was Lira, a cunning and visionary female, with silvery fur braided with spider silk threads and a pendant of fossilized bone that glowed under the moon. Lira had been born during a total eclipse, and from cubhood, She dreamed of visions of a solitary eye watching the skies. Her companion, the young explorer Kael, was her counterpoint, curious and fearless, with eyes that captured starlight and a voice that sang hymns to ward off nightmares. Together they patrolled the edges of the jungle, collecting nectar from nocturnal flowers that glowed in the dark, fleeing from predators with sharp claws, and weaving shadow maps to guide the clan on moonless nights. On a starless night, while Lira wove a protective net around the camp, a low tremor shook the earth. The roots of the trees creaked like old bones, and a muffled roar came from the depths, like the sigh of a mountain awakening from eternal sleep. It was the eternal fissure, a distant ravine that opened like a hungry mouth, now stirring with renewed hunger. Black mist rose from the ground, and the air filled with a damp smell of churned earth, mixed with the perfume of flowers closing in terror. The night weavers gathered in a lunar circle in the center of the refuge, touching the ground with the tips of their claws to feel the vibrations rising like ghosts. "Mother Night whispers warnings," said Lira, her voice serene like the flow of a nocturnal stream, but with an intensity that made fur bristle. "The eternal fissure opens. We must reinforce the webs, wrap the cubs in leaf cocoons, and prepare for migration. But I feel something more in the breeze. An ancient presence like an eye that pierces the darkness, calling us." The elders nodded in silence while the cubs nestled against their parents, eyes gleaming with fear and curiosity. Kael, always the bold one, raised his claws. "Then let's meet it. I'll weave the path under the stars." Lira smiled, but her eyes carried a shadow of doubt. She knew the fissure was not just a crack in the earth. It was a portal to forgotten abysses, and the jungle's balance hung like a web in the wind. That night, the sky covered itself with heavy clouds, and the moon struggled to shine, sending weak rays like spectral fingers. The air was charged with humidity, and the weavers gathered around a bonfire of luminescent fungi, chanting songs that invoked the protection of shadows. It was then that Mapingu emerged from the depths of the forest. His colossal body moved with deliberate slowness, claws scratching the soft soil and leaving trails of moss that glowed faintly. His disheveled fur rippled like living mist, and his single eye blinked slowly, sweeping the darkness with a beam of blue light that revealed hidden paths. The weavers froze in awe. The cubs hid in the cocoons, the sentinels raised their webs like shields, and the elders murmured invocations in lunar dialects. Lira, however, felt a call in her soul. She advanced a step, extending her open claws in a sign of trust, palms up as if offering the silence of the night. "O eye of the eternal night," she said, her voice firm despite the inner tremor. "You rise from the darkness as friend or as sentinel of the end? Mother Night tests us, and we seek sight in her shadows." Mapingu halted his graceful advance, his body curving around an ancestral tree like a living guardian. His single eye fixed on Lira, glowing with a depth that made the air vibrate like an awakened dream. From the center of that eye came not a fierce roar, but a voice of deep echo, a murmur that resonated in minds and formed images in the humid air. "I am Mapingu, the watcher who sees the invisible, born from fallen stars and deep roots. The eternal fissure will open with fury, releasing the voracious darknesses that will devour the jungle's light. But from its depths, a new vision will emerge, clearer than before. Follow me, night weavers, and I will guide you through the approaching shadows." Mapingu's words echoed in everyone's hearts, dispelling dread like mist in the moonlight. Lira bowed her head in reverence, and the entire clan followed, feeling for the first time that the darkness could be not just fear, but a mantle of salvation. Chapter 2. The journey begins. Lessons of sight in the darkness. With the dawn of twilight, for the day was short in these lands, the journey began. The Night Weavers clan, about 40 united and resilient souls, prepared their burdens in nets woven from resilient fibers, seeds wrapped in nocturnal leaves, polished claw tools, crystallized nectar for the trip, and shell amulets that captured echoes of dreams. Mapingu led the way, his immense body opening paths through the thick vegetation like a living shadow. His single eye illuminated the route ahead, revealing hidden trails that snaked between twisted roots and murmuring streams. The air was more humid now, laden with the smell of wet earth and the buzz of nocturnal insects fleeing the imposing presence. As they advanced, Mapingu began to share his first mysteries. "Darkness is not an enemy," echoed his mental voice, forming dancing visions in the air around the group. "It is the cradle of true sight. Observe." With a slow gesture, he raised a claw, touching the soil, and a spark of blue light emerged from his eye, projecting a web of shadows that revealed underground water veins. "Touch it carefully, weavers, and feel how the night reveals what the day hides." Lira was the first to experiment, her claws trembling slightly at the contact with the ethereal light. She closed her eyes, and visions flowed, maps of safe caves, paths free of predators. Gradually, the spark expanded into a protective aura, guiding without blinding. The weavers watched entranced. Kael, enthusiastic, invoked a similar vision and used it to weave a net that captured the night's dew, creating the first hydration source of the journey. "Now we can refresh the cubs," he exclaimed, laughing as the soft glow filled the air. Other weavers, like the healer Shadow Singer, an elderly slender female with fur patterned like stars, and the weaver Wind Murmur, whose claws created traps that snared even treacherous winds, tested it too. Shadow Singer used the sight to heal wounds with hidden herbs, shaping poultices that glowed in the dark. Wind Murmur saw potential in illuminated threads, weaving stronger nets that would withstand the fissures' floods. But the journey was not only one of serene revelations. The eternal fissure gurgled louder with each lunar cycle, sending tremors that made branches fall like black tears and thick mist spread like ghosts. The sky, once studded with stars, now veiled with clouds, and the moon struggled to guide. The weavers felt the weight of uncertainty. "What if the darkness swallows us before the refuge?" murmured a mother, nestling her trembling cub. Mapingu, perceiving the doubts like cracks in his sensitive sight, halted the group at nightfall and told stories of his origin to rekindle courage. Chapter 3. Mapingu's Nocturnal Origin. Under the lunar mantle, now speckled with eclipses that seemed to echo ancient falls, Mapingu curved his body around the camp, forming a protective circle of comforting shadows. His eye blinked in rhythmic patterns, like a living beacon, and from it emanated his ethereal voice. "Listen, children of the night, to the story of how the stars united with the earth to forge me. Eons ago, before the eternal shadows jungles intertwined into their current form, the universe was a void of solitary moons, floating in an infinite ocean of darkness. Each moon shone isolated, yearning for union but trapped in cold eternal cycles. One of them, called Lunara, was the most vigilant and wise of all. From her high post she contemplated the young earth, a green and black orb speckled with deep ravines, and dreamed of the embrace of pulsing roots. "I want to see what hides in the night's womb," thought Lunara, her glow trembling with longing. And so, in an act of cosmic rebellion, she detached from her orbit, falling through layers of ethereal mists and nocturnal winds like a silver tear tearing through the sky's veil. The impact was monumental, an echo that resounded through the ends of the cosmos. The Earth's crust opened like torn skin, and underground rivers gushed from the wounds like cold blood. From the violent fusion of celestial moon and terrestrial rock, Mapingu was born. His body formed first from the streams of damp soil, fur of moss and roots solidifying into thick layers like nocturnal armor, flexible to the touch of the breeze. Then came the eye. The remnant fragment of Lunara transformed into a luminous orb centralized on his forehead, capable not only of seeing the present in the darkness, but of capturing echoes of the remote past, memories of drowned forests, and glimpses of an uncertain future, like jungles reborn from floods. Mapingu rose for the first time over the newly molded land, feeling Mother Night's pulse like a shared heartbeat. "I am the eye that unites sky and shadow," echoed he to himself, his voice still resonating like the whisper of dry leaves. For millennia, he wandered alone through the wild lands, opening caves with his claws, planting seeds in dry soils by revealing hidden waters, and calming nocturnal storms with his serene glow. But fate, the invisible weaver, summoned him to the night weavers, a people born from the first rains under primordial eclipses. I exist to remind that light and dark are one, Mapingu concluded, his eyes shining more intensely. My gaze guards memories of lost nights and promises of dreams to come. Follow me, and together we will seal the eternal fissure, transforming abyss into vision. The weavers, inspired, fell asleep that night with dreams of illuminated paths, feeling for the first time that the journey was not just escape, but enlightenment. Chapter 4. Shadows in the Depths. The voracious darknesses and their specters. The journey's tranquility, however, was put to the test early. As the group crossed a gray rock ravine, where echoes of ancestral sloths still resounded on the damp walls like ghosts of past scratches, a malevolent presence stirred in the darkness. The voracious darknesses, Mapingu's dark opposite, were born from the depths of the eternal fissure, where light never touched. They were cold and sticky, an entity hungry for sight, envying the lunar glow of the guardian. Their body was a vortex of black mist, with tentacles of darkness extending like invisible claws, blinding everything they reached. Their servants were the mist specters, walking clouds that whispered illusions in the ears of the living and devoured webs of light with a ghostly touch. The first assault came on a cloudy midnight, as the group rested by a bubbling stream. The moon hid suddenly, as if a giant claw covered it, and a chilling wind swept through the jungle carrying distant laments. The trees creaked, their leaves falling like torn veils, and the specters emerged from ground fissures, ethereal forms writhing like living smoke. Lira raised her claw web, heart racing, but the darkness passed through it like illusion, freezing the fur and sowing panic. "Protect the cubs!" she shouted, while Kael brandished a luminous net, the glow trembling against the supernatural cold. It was then that Mapingu rose in all his majesty, his body unfolded like a mountain of living shadows, whipping the air with a deep roar. His single eye ignited in fullness, creating a spectacle of light that pierced the mist like a lunar spear. "Return to the void from which you came, devourers of sight," echoed his deep voice, resounding like cave trumpets. The specters moaned in agony, their forms dissolving into gray vapor that evaporated at the touch of light, but not without price. A dark tentacle grabbed Kael, Lira's companion, dragging him into a shadowy fissure in the soil. His cry echoed briefly before being swallowed by silence. The loss shook the clan like an emotional eclipse. Tears flowed like nocturnal streams, and fears grew like treacherous vines in the hearts. "Why didn't the Eye of the Night spare us completely?" questioned Shadow Singer, her voice faltering for the first time. Wind Murmur nestled his cub, eyes full of terror. Mapingu, with a tenderness contrasting his imposing presence, curved his body around the wounded camp, transmitting a comforting glow that warded off the residual cold. "Balance requires offering," he explained, his eye blinking softly at each downcast face. "I am sight, but sight needs darkness to sharpen. Without abyss there is no true light. Kael is not lost forever. He is the bridge between this world and the roots of shadows. Trust, and he will return illuminated." That night, under the protective glow of Mapingu's eye, the clan united in a ritual of lament and hope. They lit fungi in a circle, chanting songs blending pain and strength, and shared tales of ancient losses that led to greater revelations. Lira, sitting beside the guardian, touched his thick fur and whispered, "Teach us to combat the darkness, Mapingu, not just with light, but with the collective dream." The Eye of the Night tilted his head, and from his orb came glimpses, images of how sight could be woven into shadow shields, or how united song could amplify each one's inner perception. Chapter 5. Unexpected Allies and Trials on the Path. Inspired by tenacity, the weavers proceeded in the following dimness, the ravine giving way to moss-covered plains dotted with thorny bushes and streams reflecting the veiled sky. Mapingu advanced ahead, his glow revealing hidden paths between dark volcanic rocks, like petrified veins of the earth. The journey led them to unexpected allies, a flock of giant bats, creatures with membranous wings and echoes that mapped the invisible, hovered peacefully. These beings, ancestors of future aerial watchers, felt the pulse of Mapingu's eye and approached, their small eyes full of reverence. The flock's leader, an immense female named Echo Fly, folded her wings in greeting, allowing the weavers to hang from her broad backs to transport the frailest and provisions. Even the sky sent aid. A swarm of ancestral fireflies, the moon messengers, landed on Lira's shoulders, their lights pulsing in codes of glows. They signaled dangers ahead, like treacherous ravines or swarms of venomous insects awakened by the fissures' humidity. Kael, in his dreams in the depths, sent echoes through the fireflies, glimpses of healing roots and secrets of hidden caves. But the voracious darknesses did not yield easily. They sent false illusions to test the group's faith, mirages of refugees with golden nectar that revealed themselves as treacherous black mud swamps, sticky and clinging. It was thus that Thorn, the impetuous sentinel with scars from past clashes against predators, fell into the trap. Seduced by a vision of illuminated caves, he ventured into a shadowy bog, sinking to his chest in mud that sucked like invisible mouths. "Help!" he cried, panic tinting his voice as the darkness whispered promises of oblivion. Mapingu dove without hesitation, his body warming the surrounding earth until the mud bubbled, and released Thorn with a reluctant sucking sound. The sentinel emerged covered in foul sludge, coughing and gasping. "Thank you, Eye of the Night," he stammered, falling to his knees. "I doubted you, thought the darkness was invincible." Mapingu blinked his friendly eye, his soft light washing the dirt from his soul. "Doubt is the loom of wisdom, Thorn, like the moon that hides to shine brighter. Without it, there would be no clearer visions. Rise and use that lesson to guide the others." As they approached their destination, the oasis of lunar shadows, a hidden sanctuary promised by Mapingu as a safe haven, the fissures' tremors intensified. Rocks rolled from the sky like black meteors, and the ground vibrated as if Mother Night wept tears of mist. Lira, exhausted but resolute, walked beside the guardian, her web now interlaced with a thread of Maping's light, glowing within her sight. "What awaits us in the oasis, Watcher of Darkness?" she asked, sweat trickling down her dusty fur. Mapingu curved a fold of his body around her, transmitting a glow that invigorated weary senses. "You will be reborn there, Lira. I will seal the eternal fissure with my eternal sight, calming its hunger. But a part of me will remain with you, in the glow of nocturnal eyes that watch the jungle, in the moon that reveals paths, and in the pulse of your own dreams when you protect what you love." Chapter 6. The Epic Battle in the Oasis of Lunar Shadows. Finally, after cycles of trials that seemed like eons, the Oasis of Lunar Shadows appeared like a dream woven into reality. It was a veiled paradise between high cliffs, with silver cascades falling in veils of mist, flowers that whispered in the moonlight with luminescent petals, and a central lake whose healing waters bubbled with stellar vapor bubbles. Fruit trees bent under the weight of blue berries and black fruits, and the air was pure, washed by ascending breezes. The weavers exclaimed in relief, running to the waters to wash away the journey's grime, while the cubs laughed for the first time in nights, splashing in shallow pools. But the relief was fleeting. The voracious darknesses waited in the oasis's heart, their colossal form blocking the entrance to the sacred lake, a swirling vortex of darkness with mist tentacles extending like evil roots. "You shall not penetrate, fallen eye," it hissed, its voice a chorus of icy whispers that made bones ache. "This sight will be mine, and with it, the entire jungle will bow to eternal darkness." The epic battle began then, a clash of shadows that shook the oasis like a primordial eclipse. Mapingu advanced with fierce grace, his body whipping like a living night spear, slicing the tentacles with bursts of blue light. His eye exploded in blinding bursts of glow, burning the misty edges of the darknesses and forcing it to retreat with moans of pain. The enemy retaliated with impetus, enveloping the guardian in layers of icy mist that temporarily extinguished his light, sucking the sight from his orb like a voracious parasite. The air filled with hissing vapor, and the ground cracked with the impact of their clashes, sending shockwaves that toppled ancestral trees. The weavers, terrified but determined, watched from the oasis's edges. Lira shouted above the tumult, "Remember Mapingu's lessons. Sight needs us." They lit fireflies in a great circle around the fray, using lunar threads to create unified glows. Their ancestral chants rose like a sound wave, hymns of light and union that amplified the guardian's radiance. Shadow Singer clawed rhythms of drums, Wind Murmur wove nets of glow with heated threads, and Thorn led the sentinels in a ritual dance invoking the moon. Even Echo Fly and her flock joined, echoing sounds that weakened the mists. The air filled with collective glow, fueling Mapingu like breeze on nocturnal wings. His eyes shone with lunar intensity, and with a cosmic roar that echoed to the stars, he pierced the black core of the darknesses. The shadowy entity imploded in a flash of collapsing darkness on itself, its essences dissipating like mist at dawn, leaving only relieved silence and a smell of damp ozone. Chapter 7. The Sacrifice and Rebirth. With the enemy vanquished, Mapingu ascended. Yes, ascended, raising his colossal body into the air with ethereal shadow auras sprouting from his fur. To the top of the eternal fissure, now a steaming ravine a few kilometers away. His body extended to the sky, merging with the mist-laden clouds, becoming a living bridge between Earth and cosmos. He projected pure light from his eye, a jet of lunar essence that sealed the fissure with a crust of gleaming quartz, gray like the night but veined with trapped stars. The gurgling stopped abruptly, replaced by a sigh of peace from the earth, and the mist dissipated, revealing a gradually clearing sky. But the cost of balance was high. Mapingu sacrificed his full form, fragmenting into seeds of sight that fell like luminous rain across the surrounding jungle. Each seed was a piece of his soul, carrying Lunara's glow and the wisdom of the eternal shadows. Back in the oasis, Lira sought Kael and found him alive by the lake's edge, emerging from the healing waters like reborn. His fur now had a subtle sheen, and his eyes carried echoes of Mapingu's eye. "I saw the abyss," he recounted, his voice changed to a deeper tone. "Roots that intertwine with moons, secrets of sight flowing from the depths. The darkness tested me, but our guardian brother's gaze guided me back. Tears of joy mingled with the oasis's waters, and the clan gathered in embraces, feeling the cycle complete." Chapter 8. Mapingu's Eternal Legacy. Lunar cycles passed like leaves falling from an immortal tree. The night weavers rebuilt their lives in the oasis of lunar shadows, planting Mapingu's seeds in moist soils. From them grew extraordinary trees, with bark gray like cooled mist, whose branches intertwined at night forming eyes of light that watched over the living's sleep. Fruits from these trees healed blindness and illuminated minds, and their roots spread, connecting the oasis to distant jungles, weaving a network of renewed sight. Lira, now an elder with silver threads in her fur, told Mapingu's story around circles of fireflies, her voice a river of wisdom. "He taught us that darkness is not just fear, but revelation. It is the balance between moon and shadow, sight and mystery, end and dream." Kael, become a shaman, used his inherited eyes to glimpse futures, guiding the clan through coming seasons. Thorn, redeemed, trained young sentinels in the art of controlled sight, while Wind Murmur wove tapestries capturing the battle in eternal light threads. Mapingu's legend intertwined with the fabric of the earth, echoing through the ages. He transformed into the Mapinguari of indigenous stories that would come millions of years later, the one-eyed giant that protects the woods from imprudent hunters, uncontrolled floods, and the darkness of human greed. But his original essence from 10 million years ago was purer and deeper, a reminder that every darkness carries the seed of light that sacrifice forges unbreakable bonds, and that the eye of the night lives in each of us waiting to see when we need it most. And so, on moonless nights when distant stars twinkle, the descendants of the weavers, and all who hear the whisper of shadows feel the solitary glow of an eye, watching, guiding, eternal.